healthy habits foster healthy relationships. So if you have one partner who's getting healthier and the other one who's not, sure, they could still be happily married, and sure, the person who wants to be healthier can do it, but it does make it much, much harder.
Hello and welcome to Sweet Liberation today, where we are very excited to be joined by the lovely Ilana Muhlstein, all the way from LA, who is a registered dietitian and very passionate about health, and is also a mum. Ilana, thank you so much for joining us today. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we are super excited about discussing everything that we are so passionate about in the world right now, nutrition and wellness, and what on earth is going on with people's health. So we are so blessed to have you on the show today. So Ilana, sort of tell us kind of your background a little bit. We know that you're a dietitian, you're a registered dietitian, which is really important. We've had some fantastic guests on this show, so many wonderfully qualified and passionate people. So tell us kind of what's your passion into getting into becoming a dietitian?
Sure. Yeah. So at 4 years old, my parents got divorced. And at that point, it was kind of like my first memories were very chaotic in the home, very stressful. And we were a big foodie family. So food was kind of the thing they gave me to soothe myself. And that was the thing I hung on to. So it wasn't a sport. It wasn't, a religion or anything else. It really became food. Food was the comfort. That was the safety blanket or the teddy bear to me. And despite so much moving around and step parents coming in and out of my life, food was that constant that I would always lean on for emotional comfort and relief during very dark and just wild times. And I used to sit in the kitchen by myself. We didn't have family dinners. My siblings were far older than I was. So I was just alone a lot of the times with the pantry and, Nickelodeon cartoons. And I would just eat whole tubs of peanut butter, whole sleeves of cookies, like the whole bag of bread rolls, whatever it was I could get my hands on, I did. And it became very harmful to my health. By the time I was 8 years old, my doctor was warning my parents, like, she's, gaining weight at very rapid speed. This is a problem. This is a problem. And at 8 years old, she finally said, enough's enough. She has to go to fat camp. Like, she literally has to go to a weight loss camp this summer because at 8 years old, her blood sugar levels, her cholesterol levels, her waistline, like, it's just unhealthy and unwell, and you parents aren't doing anything to stop it. So I remember she put a brochure in my mom's hand, and off I went for 9 weeks as an 8-year-old, in upstate New York, like into the woods. And I would work out all day and get these pre-portioned meals and have nutrition classes. And I came home and I lost 30 pounds, but nothing changed, right? My home life was the same: comfort eating, lack of supervision, ultra processed food mayhem that I was into. So I gained all the weight back and more. And I had to return back to camp. So another summer of meeting with dietitians and exercising and all of this stuff, I'd lose 30 pounds. And then I'd do the same revolving door for about 5-6 years. I would just lose weight every summer, gain it all back and more. And I was sacrificing a whole social life. All my school friends were doing things together in the summer, and I was pretending I was going to some miraculous sports camp where, like, I would just, be alone and apart from everyone else. And eventually, by the time I was 13 going into high school, thankfully I had the intuition to just say, enough's enough. You're not doing this for your doctor anymore. You're not doing this for your parents. You're truly miserable. Change, like, find a change that will work with you and your lifestyle. And I was never into portion control. So at that stage, they were telling everyone to eat protein like the deck of cards and use like half a fist to eat rice. But at the same time, we were also being told the food guide pyramid. I don't know if you guys remember that. in the US, we had this food guide pyramid telling everyone to eat 8 to 11 servings of bread a day. So I was just very overwhelmed with the nutrition guidance at the point, and I realized I like to eat a lot. I like food, and I like to eat food while watching TV, and I like to eat food when I'm socializing, and I don't want to feel deprived by eating very little. What can I eat in bigger volumes and still feel good in my body and lose some weight? So I started leaning on vegetables and water, and getting more creative in the kitchen and feeling self-empowered. And for the first time in my life at 13, I started losing weight on my own in that school year. And I decided at that point I wanted to become a registered dietitian and help others lose weight and get healthy in the same approach I was doing, which felt much more attainable and realistic and comfortable. And it worked. And I continued to lose 100 pounds, became a registered dietitian, got my master's degree in nutrition, turned my weight loss program and philosophy into a now program that hundreds of thousands of people around the world are doing and exposed to. And I've kind of branched off also into a kids nutrition program, a pregnancy program, cookbooks, and so much more. And that's where I am today.
Amazing. I am just blown away. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, Luke, you are also blown away. I can see.
Amazing. Yeah, it's fantastic. And I think the thing is, it's very much as well that, having a mission that you've then wanted to share, that is so, fabulous. I think that's amazing.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel when you're telling that story, I am literally sort of walking in you were told it so in such a vulnerable way, going through the emotions of this child that is kind of on this roller coaster. And kind of, I just think it's so important for people to be able to share. And you've now become a professional that's helping and helped hundreds of thousands of people. Tell us about this relationship that you had around food and comfort, and how has that developed as you've into adulthood?
Yeah, now working with clients, I'd say the worst thing I hear that people do on diets, like our bad diets they've done in the past, is they've isolated themselves, right? Like they're getting meal delivery, they have to eat the same 4 foods, they have to cut everything out. So then they're declining invitations to go out with friends at restaurants. They're not going to parties, they're saying no to things. And that never resonated with me, because I'm an extrovert. I love people. I'm extremely social. I'm married also. That is very social. We have extrovert kids who like to go to parties and never avoid things. And so I think I always had this philosophy that I could have my cake and eat it too. I really there is a positive approach to weight loss that I can get to. And I might not eat the same exact food as everyone around me, but that's okay. And I think everyone needs to lean in on what they find comforting. I find it to be comforted to be full and satisfied. I'm not comforted by feeling deprived, and I think people do this thing where they try to pretend like they have no emotional connection to food, right? They try to pretend I just want to be skinny, and when I'm skinny, I'll be happy. So I'm going to avoid social interactions. I'm going to decline invitations to parties and restaurants with friends, and I'm going to lose all this weight. But that person is always set up to fail, because eventually that person's going to realize they're not happy along the way. And so I still have a very emotional connection to food. Food still makes me very, very happy. It's just that I've changed the definition of what happy food is. And I have become very clear with the fact that the ultra processed, highly refined carbs and lots of sugar that I used to think made me happy were actually fueling more sadness. And now when I find this better for you pumpkin pie recipe that I made yesterday, and the serving size is gigantic. The serving size is a quarter of a pie. And when I get to eat this gigantic pumpkin pie thing and call it a breakfast because it has 23 grams of protein and it's 380 so calories and it's low in sugar, it has fiber, it's the best of every world. I really have grown to love these foods, and it makes me feel good in my body. It is that win-win. So I'm not an emotional eater now. I think food still brings me a lot of joy and comfort, but it's just a different relationship.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I'm salivating just listening to that. Luke, can you just get Ilana a ticket? She needs to come to my kitchen immediately. We need to start her. Like, let's get in the kitchen together. How amazing.
I would love to.
Yeah, you are up my own heart as Luke's laughing over there because I'm a massive comfort food girl. I love my food and there's nothing that makes me happier than eating good food. So I completely, we both, and Luke as well, resonates with this idea of bringing healthy food and into that happiness space. It doesn't have.
It's just that redefining. Yeah, it's just redefining what comfort food looks like. It's a big piece of the puzzle.
Amazing. What an amazing thing. I know Luke's itching as well, but I'm just thinking, absolutely, food for me, food needs to be delicious. You just make all the good food delicious, and what's not to love about that, really?
Right.
Yeah. Amazing. So amazing. You've helped hundreds of thousands of people. Are you finding mainly women are coming to you for help, or is it both genders?
I'd say it's probably, I mean, it's probably at least 90% women, but there are a lot of men who have benefited as a domino effect. So I'd say there definitely are men who, have read my book and, hang on to the tips and have lost a lot of weight and have been very successful. And in my private practice, it's very much the same. 90% private clients who are women, but I always, I'm always working with a man or a teenage boy and so forth. But a lot of husbands living with these women benefit tremendously. They tell me that husbands are now obsessed with lettuce cups at night. Like, I have one client just like, my husband just loves lettuce. Like, he acts like it's his first time discovering it because he scoops up his dinner every night with lettuce cups and it's just been a game changer for him and he's lost so much weight and he loves it. So a lot of times I'll hear the benefits and the testimonials almost through the women, but there are definitely lots of men who connect to the program as well. I think I am pretty tough love. I am not a coddler. I'm very sensible, simple, straightforward, to the point. And I think that resonates with a lot of people. But there are some nutrition approaches that say everything in moderation and, healthy at every size and all these things that are a little softer. I'm a little bit more, I believe in the scale. I believe in data. I don't believe every food works in moderation for every person. Like if there's a food that's particularly triggering and unhealthy, you could also live without it. You have to do what's best for you. So I think my temperament and my straightforward approach resonates a lot with men, and they really appreciate that, and women as well.
Oh, that's amazing. I was going to say, actually, one of the things between a husband and wife, actually, it's important that there is that sort of crossover. And actually, there is a bit of a me too, isn't there, with that? Because if there is a wife that's actually getting results and as you say, the husband sees those results and then thinks, oh, I want some of that. But I also think it's important to support the other person. If somebody's doing something or on a regime, I think it's very hard if one person is eating a lettuce leaf and the other person is eating donuts. I mean, what do you say when that sort of thing is going on? Do you see that?
Right. Yeah. This one client with the husband who's has a newfound appreciation for lettuce, like every time I speak to her and she mentions these things, I'm like, your likelihood of continuing to be successful and keeping it off is so much higher than a woman who doesn't have a supportive husband like this. Like this woman, I've never even spoken to her husband or worked with him, but she tells me that he's really come along the journey and he's also benefited so much, and they plan to make their vacations together healthier and happier. And she's just set up for so much more success, because I really do find that healthy habits foster healthy relationships. So if you have one partner who's getting healthier and the other one who's not, sure, they could still be happily married, and sure, the person who wants to be healthier can do it, but it does make it much, much harder. And so with those people, I always say, you don't have to impose your healthy intentions onto this other person, but you have to set some boundaries with this person to say, like, when you're eating the chips, don't eat them in the bed because that makes me want to reach my hand over and I don't really want to eat it. So like, please be respectful to me and just eat them in the living room, right? Like you have to have some open dialogue of conversation just so you can guarantee the person's more successful. It could be when we go out for anniversary dinner, I'm not drinking as much alcohol this time. So rather than splitting a bottle like we normally do, which creates a lot of pressure to finish the bottle and drink more than I want, I'm actually not going to drink. And why don't you order by the glass? Like having these conversations in advance, whatever they might be, it just will strengthen any relationship, even if both parties are not necessarily on board with the same goals.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What I want to know, it sounds like you love cooking as well, Ilana. That sounds to me like you love being in the kitchen, which just, again, let's just coordinate diaries. Come over here to Wales. Let's make this happen. But yeah, I love. Do you find that people are de-skilled these days in the kitchen, and is that playing a part in the pandemic of unhealthy eating in the world?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I have to think about this one because my parents didn't cook. I grew up on restaurants, takeout. Like my parents were, like I said, New York City, where there's 20 restaurants on every block, and they were divorcees, and they were just both not cooks. My mom, frozen vegetables, like heat up in a skillet with a bottled sauce, like that was kind of the extent of her cooking. And I didn't really grow up around it. It's something that I hacked my way through. I still have never gone to culinary school. I love a lot of shortcuts in the kitchen, and I like it to be quick. I like it to be easy. I don't want anyone to think that they have to be gourmet in order to be healthy. And I think that is a piece of the intimidation factor, that you need to be this big meal prepper, very intense, recipe lover and cook in order to lose weight. And it's really not the case. I have a cookbook here that you could definitely get in the UK. Love the Food That Loves You Back, with 3 ingredient, just stir togethers, 5 ingredient, just simple and easy. But I will say, if someone out there doesn't like to cook and is interested, I would really encourage them to dive in, because it can help you save so much money and so much fat and so much calories for such better quality food. And sometimes it just takes getting a better knife and a better cutting board, or a food chopper, some of these just good tools in the kitchen to make you embrace the cooking more. But it's something I really encourage people to do. And I know we complain so much about the cost of food, especially here in the US right now. And this week, especially because I film recipes and I cook recipes and I have kids, and this week, I literally think I was in the grocery store every single day, which is exhausting. It's absurd. It's expensive. It's absurd. But every day this week, I had to go in for one thing that my kids wanted for dinner. And then I went in for this one thing I wanted to make. And, you never end up just getting one thing. And I felt like I spent a fortune. Now it's Friday. Looking back, I feel what was my grocery bill this week? I probably spent hundreds of dollars on food this week, but I have a full fridge stocked up for the whole weekend. And I even meal prep stuff that's in the freezer, and I'm bringing food to a friend for a party. How much is that saving me versus not going to, we're not going to go to one restaurant all weekend, right? So many people, they don't like $120 here, which is maybe 50, 60 pounds, whatever it is that you guys, for groceries. But then how easy is it to spend that on one takeout run with a family of 5? So, it's one of those things where sometimes there is sticker shock in the grocery store, but it gets you so much further, and you're always better off making the groceries and making the food yourself, or even assembling it in an easy way, than relying on restaurants.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you on that one. Absolutely. We're big meal preppers and food hackers.
Great.
We just find all the easy recipes, especially Luke as well. Both of us are in the kitchen. We're just done, quick. We haven't got time. We're busy parents, but we cook.
Right. There's some things like brown rice or something that's so cheap to make at home, or baked potatoes, but it would just cost just so much more if you have to order these things takeout.
Yeah, and in the UK, restaurants, since lockdown and everything, and since COVID, restaurants, because they were shut for a period of time, they've gone crazy with their pricing. And it's absolutely staggering how much even 2 people going out for a meal. That's the equivalent of 3 people. 3 days worth of food for in the supermarket.
Totally.
one of the things
And it's great for special occasions. It's great for, supporting small businesses, but it's just, the quick casual, every lunch, every breakfast, every coffee, like it's just something that everyone should get used to making for themselves.
Amazing. Amazing. And now I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into your approach. So I know as a dietitian, you will have studied pretty much every nutritional approach going. So where do you sit in the way that you teach people, or do you adapt a nutritional approach for each person? What kind of style of nutrition are you advocating?
Yeah. So it's kind of like 50-50. So I don't believe in a set meal plan for every person. I don't have a client tell me their weight, their height, their activity level, and I print them out this, prescription. This is what you're going to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Because what if I put on there steamed chicken and broccoli, and then your friend wants to go to sushi? Now what are you going to do, right? You're not going to decline that invite. Again, I want you to live your life. So I don't have anything that's too prescriptive, but I have enough guidelines so people actually get results. Because I think that on the other hand, like of the spectrum, there's been this like anti-diet culture. So now you have health professionals telling people to be so loosey-goosey with everything that they're actually getting further and further from the goal of a healthy body in mind. So I have enough guidelines for people to be very successful, but with enough, flexibility that they can continue to live their life. So I recommend guidelines for breakfast, guidelines for lunch, guidelines for dinner. Like at lunch, I want to see half plate veggies. I want 25% protein. I want 25% carb. But if that's green beans or a salad or a slaw or a minestrone soup, like it all counts as a veggie. If it's chicken or tofu or, beans, like it's just whatever it is, you're going to get your protein in depending on your dietary preferences, your allergies, your lifestyle, your stress level, whatever you can handle, budget. So it's like that. And I think, Luke, you were saying something. I apologize if I cut you off.
No, yeah, I was actually talking about shopping habits, actually. And I think that from a dietary perspective, actually, people's shopping habits are quite important. And one of the things I tend to do, I know you mentioned about going to the store and buying every day, but sometimes if I shop and go to the store to buy the ingredients only for one meal, what you actually find for me in my experience is that you're not then overbuying or buying food that's then potentially going out of date. And that was the point I was going to make about,
right.
Shopping specifically per meal. And I think
right. It's actually, they say in France, it's, the French and, they are doing a relatively good job on keeping their obesity rate low, but it is growing, sadly. I don't want to see that for any country, but one habit, at least, in old school France culture before 2000 or before 2010 even, was to go to the grocery store often. Like they actually have local markets that are typically walkable, and it's very common for someone to go grocery shopping every 2 to 3 days to have that fresh, food in the house that doesn't go spoiled, and you're, intentional with what you're going to make and serve yourself and your family. And then in America, we kind of took the different approach where people grocery shop at these massive retailers like Costco's that, can't even fit into small European cities, these huge mega centers that have such bulk amounts of food where you can't buy one avocado. You have to buy 12 at a time. And so it creates this culture that we need to have all this like big storage. Now we need bigger pantries. Now we need bigger fridges. And it's not necessarily the greatest thing. So I agree that sometimes picking up parsley and fresh tomatoes for a vegetable soup that I would make that day, it makes me feel like I'm part of like old world France. Like maybe this is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. I mean, throughout Europe, and they kind of tend to, France, Spain, Italy, that kind of feeling of buying from your local, your local place, your local market, just going down, getting the bread for a coffee and breakfast, something like that. It's just kind of much more of a thing. So do you think culturally now in tier 1 developed countries where we're seeing these kind of massive obesity epidemics happening, how much of that do you think we are going to be able to undo by re-educating people? What do you think the gap is between where we are right now and kind of making those impacts?
Yeah, I'd say I always, for the past, 10 to 15 years, I've been doing this professionally. I always, I'm so optimistic. I'm like, this is the year. Kale is in, cauliflower is in. Like, this is it. It's happening. Like, you're seeing these things on the menu. This is the year we're going to get healthier and the obesity rates are going to go down. And then they continue to climb. So, like, I am cautiously optimistic. But I will say, from a person who is an eternal optimist, I will say that it does feel better now than almost ever before. But it's not necessarily what I'm obsessed with focusing on, but it's still a good step in the right direction. I don't know how involved you are with American politics, but now for the first time, we really have a campaign that is running on health, which for some reason has not happened. So for the past couple of election cycles, ever since I've been old enough to be aware of politics, I'm like, I don't understand. I'm learning in school that we have more people who have diabetes and more obesity right now, and that costs our government so much money that we're having so many unhealthy people. We have so many unhealthy, obese young boys in our country that we're having a hard time drafting to the military because we're so unfit. Like, there's so many big problems, but yet I would go through election cycles and no one would bring it up. And I'm like, am I living in a warped world? Like, this is a huge economy issue. This is a huge, like, internal health issue. How is this not an item at a presidential debate? So now, after like 2 or 3 of those election cycles, finally, it's now a topic. Sadly, though, it's only one side that is having this talk and talking about the importance of taking artificial dyes out of our food and talking about, like, cleaning up the government incentives that we right now only give farmers incentives to grow genetically modified corn and wheat. And they're not having, these farmers have high suicide rates. They have no incentive to be growing tomatoes and asparagus because the government's not helping them for that. And it's so backwards. And we only have one political side who is talking about this. And I just think this is a bipartisan issue. Like, this should be something that everyone is talking about. And I'm not saying where I fall politically, but I know that this side, to be a health professional in the United States and not be at least amplifying this message is really irresponsible. But sadly, there are so many health professionals who just don't want that other side to win. So they're just calling them conspiracy theorists or whatever it is. And it's so messy. So on one hand, it's very positive that the message is on a higher scale and bringing more awareness to what we can do to reform this problem. But then on another hand, like, if a different party wins, then I'm afraid that topic then gets suppressed again. So it's tricky.
It is. Wow. That's and for sure. I mean, in the UK, I don't think we have a single election or campaign that doesn't involve the health service here.
Wow.
National Health Service. But that's a double-edged sword in itself because, we are seeing such problems with it. But yeah, I mean,
it's embarrassing. Like, it's in America, you don't feel it. But I was talking to a friend who moved abroad for a year, and she said the kids in school say, "Oh my God, you're from fat America." Like, it's so crazy that here we don't realize that we are kind of a laughingstock from a global perspective, because why do we have so much money and resources and yet we're so sick and unhealthy? It's not a statistic we should be very proud of. And I feel like hopefully that's like something that more people are becoming aware of.
Yeah.
We should be fixing. So I'd say the only thing I disagree with, or that I wish, I'm very focused on consuming more vegetables. Like, I like to focus on the positive. I like to focus on what we should be filling up on. I wish there was and I think the government subsidies will help with that, changing that reform. But I wish there was a lot more talk on like more fruits and vegetables, more whole foods versus right now it's kind of a negative focus campaign. Like, let's get artificial, dyes out of food. Let's get preservatives out of food. It's not as much my focus because I believe we could crowd that stuff out. When you eat more whole foods, you just end up not eating as much of those preservatives. But that is kind of the first step. And I'll take any step in the right direction because it's all important.
Oh my goodness, we're talking about dyes and artificial. What about the elephant in the room? What about sugar? Refined carbohydrate. So where do you sit with sugar on your dietary approach that you use with your clients?
Right. Listen, I don't have a ban on anything. Like anyone who does these like no sugar detoxes for 20 days, like that's not a sustainable situation. My take on sugar, I think fruit is our nature's candy, and we should be giving our kids lots of fruit. And I always have frozen grapes in the fridge, and I always have apples, and I always have plums. And I really hope my kids continue to lean on fruit and bananas as a means of curbing a sweet tooth in a very productive way that gives you energy and has fiber and has nutrients. So big in choosing fiber-filled, fruit when having a sweet tooth. I do eat sugar sometimes. I don't cut it all out. I believe you can treat, not cheat. If you have some sugar, it's a treat, it's not a cheat. You move on with your life. But at the same time, we have to discuss the elephant in the room, which is the more sugar a person eats, the more sugar a person craves. So we can't just say all sugar in moderation, because for me, at this stage of my health journey, I can have sugar, I can enjoy it, and I can move on. But early on, when I treated sugar as a means of, coping with emotional distress, and because it does release dopamine in the brain and does give you a high, like for me, for a long time, I had to just kind of cut away from it and not even try to have it in moderation. And early on, I did have to separate myself from it a little bit more intensely in order to understand my emotions and understand my behaviors and my self-awareness. And now I work it in really well. And I don't think anyone ever has to do like a full cutout. And I don't think I ever particularly did, but it wouldn't be fair to people if I didn't share that, like, there was a point early on in my journey where I did need to say, like, I'm a little allergic to desserts. Like, I just had to step away because I found that every time I ate them, I craved them more. And I kept eating them for the wrong reasons. And I kept eating them very rushed and like it was the end of the world. And, now it's very mindful. It's very planned for. It's very, enjoyable, but I wasn't always there. So I think everyone has to have a lot of self-awareness with their relationship with sugar and do what they need to do. I don't think you need to keep a lot of candy in your house. I don't think you need to keep a lot of cookies in your house on the counter. So if you do have cookies or candy in your house, try to make it a little out of sight, out of mind, like put it on a higher shelf, so we can keep it balanced. Because, there's this idea that we should be very neutral with food with kids, right? So, and I was always taught this before I had my own kids, right? Becoming a dietitian, that you should give your kids dessert at the same time you give them broccoli, so you don't make them feel like the dessert is the reward and the broccoli is the chore. And we should be very neutral. And that's great in theory, but society isn't neutral about sweets. Society makes them neon green and sugar coated and has more commercials for the candy than it does the broccoli. And so candy is on a big pedestal, and there's so much more money pumped into the marketing of it to make it more exciting with figures and so forth. So it's not as easy to moderate as people say it is. And so, I have this one expression, and I find that my most successful clients really cling on to this, which is you got to know yourself, not test yourself. And I always say, you got to know yourself, don't test yourself. And so again, I do eat sugar and all these things, but I don't have like tons of chocolate chip cookies just lining my counter, because if I did, I don't know how successful I would be, right? So even a dietitian who's been practicing this for so many years, like, I'm not above insight in mind. If it were insight, I'd be eating a lot more of it. So I think everyone has to set themselves up for success, right? setting their environment up with lots of healthy things, have, flavored teas on the counter or flavored sparkling waters or a bowl of fresh fruit, and maybe use stevia or monk fruit to sweeten your coffee rather than artificial sweeteners or syrups that just lead you down the path of having out of control sugar cravings.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We could indeed. I mean, we say we are mostly sugar-free because
that's great.
Mostly sugar-free means that occasionally, do you know what? I'm at a birthday party. I'll have a piece of cake. I'm not going to go, oh no,
we should all be mostly sugar-free if you think about it. Like,
which means
a very sensible thing. It's sad that in today's society it needs a label, but it's like a lot of this stuff, like I always say, water first, veggies most. It should be an obvious. It was an obvious. In some cultures of the world, it is the obvious. Like it's embedded. In the Middle East, in Greek, like it's veggies most. Like they're just veggies. At breakfast time, you see veggies. You just see vegetables. There's peppers, there's onions, there's mushrooms, there's Greek salad. Like it's embedded. In Israel, it's the same thing. You don't just have a vat of scrambled eggs. You have the eggs on top of tomato sauce, like shakshuka, which is a Middle Eastern egg dish. It's like veggies are embedded in the culture. You don't have to necessarily overthink it. But yes, in today's society in the UK and the US, you have to think like, I don't need a lot of sugar. I do need a lot of vegetables. Like we have to be more methodical about this stuff. I always say like, I'm a great hacker. Like I could find something healthy and I could hack a menu everywhere. And it's a great skill of mine that I like to share with people, but it's also a little sad that you have to hack your way to be healthy in a lot of these cultures when it should be a default. So hopefully we can get there in our lifetime.
We hope so. We hope so. Luke, you're sitting there smiling.
Exactly. Well, and I think it is about the education, 100%. And it's the thing that we're quite passionate about, because one of the interesting things in the UK that we find is that the people that don't necessarily know about what they should be buying and what sort of meals to prepare, and taking those shortcuts and buying the food that needs a bit more preparation. They're buying ready meals, and actually it can be that lack of education and everything that you're doing in terms of getting those messages out there is so valuable. But it is a struggle because of course the people that are a bit, they're in that social economic part of the country where they're able to, they can do a little bit like you're doing with the hacking of things and, buying the right ingredients and eating healthy. They're more likely to pick up a bottle of water, whereas people that don't have the education, they're more likely to pick up a bottle of soda, a Coke or something. And that is one of the big challenges we have in the UK. And I think probably similar in the US.
Yeah, I went to Japan this past summer, and it was, a place my husband had on his bucket list. And then as a dietitian who focuses on obesity, I was like, I got to get to Japan, right? They have a 4% obesity rate. We have a 40% obesity rate. Like they are, the leaders in health. I have to go there. And they have plenty of desserts. Like, let me tell you, the Japanese, they love their desserts. I'll also tell you they're not as sweet. Like many of them are not even close to being as sweet, and they're all matcha based. So like there's so much, the EGCG, the antioxidants that are pumped within their desserts, because matcha is like a flavor profile there, like chocolate in the United States. But in addition to that, like there just is no soda. So it's not that they're a sugar-free society. Like they actually do eat sugar. They're not even a refined grain-free society because they do eat lots of white rice. But there's literally no soda to be found. I'd say most restaurants we went to, there wasn't even like a beverage menu. There was water and tea. Like there was no anything else. And what was also fascinating there is they have a vending machine culture. So that you can get bouquets of flower from a vending machine. Like in the train station, like if you're going to visit grandma, you don't have to prepare the flowers. Like there's a vending machine, a flower bouquet. They have vending machines for like all these different things, but they're literally just tons of different teas and some juices, but there's no soda in the country. Like it's unbelievable. Even in their 7-Elevens, they maybe have a Coca-Cola, but like here in the US, We have Dr. Pepper, we have Sprite, we have Mountain Dew, we have Coca. Like we have vanilla Coke, we have this Coke, we have Diet Coke, we have Coke Zero. We have like 20 flavors, mainstream flavors of soda here. And the only soda, if you can find soda in Japan, you are with this like one small bottle of plain cola. Like there's no orange, there's no purple, there's no neon. Like just soda is, if I could do one thing to reform and completely change the obesity epidemic, if we just started taxing soda like we tax cigarettes, we would see immediate declines in consumption, immediate declines in obesity and diabetes. I would put so much money on that bet.
Yeah, we've done it in the UK. We have done it in the UK and not probably gone far enough, but we do have a
smaller bottles. That's amazing that you
It was a sugar tax, actually, on the sodas. There's a 15% more expensive than the diet. But the problem with the diet things is that you've got some of these things like aspartame, sucralose, some of these sort of chemical sweeteners in there. And
it's a lesser evil. It's still
it's more toxic, to be honest. I don't know.
They should have. That's interesting. They didn't put it on all soda. I will say, if I could like eliminate only one, I would eliminate the sugar sweetened. But we have lots of studies to show that the average consumer of diet soda is obese. So like, there's some studies that looked into the psychology of it. Like, why are people who drink 0-calorie soda more obese? Is it because they think they're saving on the calories in the soda so they can justify ordering the extra fries? Like, or is it that the diet soda tricks our brain to just crave more sweet? So after the 0-calorie sweet, you have a high-calorie one after. There's so much into it. So again, I'm not promoting diet soda by any means, or aspartame or artificial sweeteners in any way. But if I had to tax only one, I probably would have kept with the regular. I would say there should still probably be a tax on both.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm so jealous you've been to Japan. Luke, get the passports ready.
It should absolutely be on a bucket list. It is a wonderful place to go.
The food must have been spectacular as well. I just love Japanese food.
It's just so different. It's just so different. And that's what's really cool about traveling there, because sadly, the UK has become a lot like America in a lot of ways. Like our American establishments, like McDonald's and Wendy's and Burger King, like all these just like large scale fast foods that are American brands have just infiltrated, throughout so many European countries. And UK is number 2, right behind US with obesity. So definitely work to be done. It sounds like you guys are slightly ahead. And I hope you continue to, get healthier. I think we both need it so much, but it's wild. It's wild how pervasive it is.
Absolutely. So Ilana, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you. If you are going to, I know that people will want to reach out to you, and we'll make sure that we make your links available. And I'm sure they'll also want to see your books, and they're available on Amazon. Is that right?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if you had kind of some words of wisdom you wanted to leave our listeners and viewers with, people that are feeling just so overwhelmed, how do I start? They may be obese themselves, they may be facing diabetes and all of these things, and they might be listening to this and they're thinking, this is an unsurmountable mountain. I can't understand how am I going to start? Where would you start? Where would you recommend that people start on this journey? What would be the first step that you take?
The first step is mindset, because if you don't believe you can do it, you never will. And I never believed I could get to the weight I am now, like ever. I never believed I would lose 100 pounds. That if you told me that, I wouldn't have believed you. But I focused on 2 pounds at a time. And so that's what my number one tip would be, is believe that you can do it and focus on 2 pounds at a time. So, if you weigh 100 kilograms, 100 kilo, just thinking 99, like, 1 kilo at a time, right? 2 pounds at a time is about 1 kilo at a time. You could be 99. You could be 98. You could be 97, and just go just one at a time. And that really is the best way to do it. Celebrate every win and keep making the lifestyle changes that get you not just losing weight, but keeping it off. So the better for you recipes, the habits, not getting the double pumps of sugar syrup in your coffee, realizing it's fine without it. It really is. It's a change, but it's fine. Or going from 3 pumps to 2 pumps, 2 pumps to 1 pump, it all adds up. It all makes a difference. And I think we think, oh, if I don't lose 100 pounds or if I don't, it's all or nothing. It's not. Because even just being down 5 kilo would change your entire life. It would make you have more energy. It could improve your lifespan. Like it could be the thing that keeps you off of blood pressure lowering medications for longer, So I don't think people give enough credit to the small incremental improvements that are so impactful.
Yeah. That's where Luke is always talking about incremental wins, aren't you, Luke?
That's right, incremental wins. And I sometimes refer to it as baby steps. Yeah, just do a little bit at a time, that little 1% improvement every day. And actually, as you say, the transition, what I found with it in terms of that aggregation, actually, that we've, there's a bit of a journey that Nabila and I have been on, is that when you actually start making some of the smaller steps, you start getting motivated, and then you add something else, and you add something else, and you add something else. And that snowball starts to roll, and you actually start to then start getting bigger and bigger gains. And then, I actually don't agree. Tony Robbins actually made a point, and he said that dieting is quite hard. He said, because you get an initial win, and he said, and then you start taking your foot off the gas a little bit. Now, actually, I think it's the opposite. I think if you lose 5 kilos, you're motivated to lose another 5. That's how I come at it. And and then you see those big changes. That's my take.
Absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. I think that idea of the 1 kilo at a time, and that kind of that this new life as well, that you're going to start. This is your new normal every day, surrounding yourself with these beautiful, nourishing, fuels, these beautiful, nourishing foods, not feeling in a state of deprivation. Because I loved what you said about that at the beginning. That feeling of deprivation fuels that anxiety that makes you want to just go and eat all the cake. I can't have any cake, can't have any cake. Your brain's just going cake, 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 cake. And then you go and stuff your face with cake, all the soda and all that anxiety. And you talked about that beautifully at the beginning. So inspiring. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Ilana. And we're sure that there'll be lots of people reaching out to you and reading your books and getting your recipes and taking so much away from this inspiration. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we hope that we get to see you again soon.
Yes,
and maybe
that'd be great.
I mean, I'm all about the food, girl. So let's hook it up and get in the kitchen together and have some yummy food. We must have that pumpkin pie recipe. Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We look forward to having you again soon. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.